Hello everybody, Mannix here. Got another knife in my little knife locking mechanism series for you right here, right now. This is a very notorious one, a very sought after, beautiful, amazing, strong, fast, innovative locking mechanism. The Cage Ball Bearing Lock by Spyderco. Absolutely. What is that crap on the blade right there? What is that? How did that get on there? I got rid of it. The Cage Ball Bearing Lock. It's a side actuating locking mechanism. I'm going to explain how this works very briefly. It's very strong, it's very simple, it's very innovative, it's an amazing locking mechanism. If you're familiar with the Benchmade Axis lock, it looks similar to this. It's more of a cylindrical shape, but it functions, on the surface anyway, it functions pretty much exactly the same. You have to pull back on it, and that releases the blade and allows you to move it. So on the surface it functions exactly the same, but internally it's completely different. The Cage Ball Bearing Lock has a single spring and a rod system on there, which is constantly pushing pressure on the caged ball bearing. There is a steel ball bearing within the FRN piece you see right here enveloping it. It's in there. You can see just barely, it's inside of there. This FRN you're seeing right here is just so you can get a good grip on it so it doesn't slide out of your hand as easily. But there is a steel ball bearing inside of there. And the spring and the rod are constantly pushing on it this way where the cutout is. So as you move the blade, and you can see right there, the big old cutout of the tang of the blade is about to make contact. So as soon as you see it open up right there, as soon as there's that window, again, this is constantly wanting to push to the left from this perspective. When there's just enough free space there, it shoves itself in place. And that is what stops negative force from closing the blade. Now, what stops the positive force is this big old steel backspacer up here. Usually backspacers are down here. In fact, I think I have one around here somewhere. What do we got? Here's kind of a weak example, but that's a backspacer on the CRKT Piet right here. But they have it up here. It's kind of cool. How's that for a stop pin? You know, normally you'd have something like this. That's a stop pin right there. That's what stops the blade from over traveling. Stops it in place for the locking mechanism to catch it in time. How's this for a stop pin? I love it. This is a stop backspacer. You can't get much stronger than that for stopping positive force from making the blade over travel. So that's awesome. But then, of course, the negative force is stopped by the cage ball bearing, which is pinched in between both the bottom of the tang of the blade, which would be this right here, and the top backspacer slash stop pin, stop backspacer, whatever you want to call that, which I'm assuming is also a very tempered steel, held into place with those two screws, as you can see right there. Bang! So, the blade cannot over travel because of this stop bar, and if you try to put pressure on the spine, the pressure from the bottom of the tang is transferred to the ball bearing, which again is also transferred to the backspacer up here, the stop backspacer. So it's kind of like a cold steel triad lock in a way. You have a stop pin, you have the locking mechanism itself, the lock bar, and then you have the tang of the blade all kind of working together. This is similar to that when it comes to negative force on the blade. You have three parts: the tang of the blade, contact the ball bearing, which again is transferring shock to the stop bar. So it kind of works in a, I don't know what I was going to say there. It's like not really a circular, I guess technically you could say it's a circular motion, but the pressure is divided amongst the three parts. It's actually very ingenious, it's very simple, and not only is it a very strong locking mechanism, it's fun as hell. It's side actuating, so you can do this. Isn't that fun? Like a Benchmade Axis lock. SOG's got their arc lock. I think there's some other manufacturer has something similar. It's side actuating, so it functions almost exactly like the Benchmade Axis lock, but the internals of it are completely different. I actually prefer the cage ball bearing lock. I like how much more simple it is. It's literally just a spring on a rod down there. I don't know exactly how it works, but I do know for a fact that the spring's just constantly putting pressure on it, and it's extremely, extremely strong. How strong? I'm not really sure. I don't have like a tier list of locking mechanism strength because there's a lot of variables. It's hard to have a knife go head to head with another with different locking mechanisms because they're often engineered and manufactured differently. They have different materials, different heat treatments, different geometries. It's kind of hard to just throw them head to head unless you knew both knives had the exact same materials and sizes, etc. However, I do know for a fact the cage ball bearing lock is very strong. I do like how fast it is. I like how it's relatively low friction. I like how you can open up the knife without even touching the blade. It's very simple, it's fast, it's innovative, it's ambidextrous. Freaking love it. Love this locking mechanism. I wish I'd see it on more Spydercos, more knives. I love side actuating locking mechanisms. So in case you're wondering, that is the cage ball bearing lock. One of my favorites.